We have spoken about software engineering and what is the need, the necessity, what are the features, techniques which is being used to solve a complicated problem. Now, when we talk about software engineering, there should be a need of any subject, isn't it? Then that's the reason we have the requirement. So basically, what is the need? Let us see. These are the various needs, okay, that gave birth to the subject. So first of example, if we need a large software, okay, so in order, if the size of the software is very large and it has many parts or many functionalities, then in that case, the approach for solving the software or building the software should be scientific in nature. Okay, that means there should be prescribed guidelines, rules and regulations, protocols being followed in order to make the software. Secondly, the utility of software engineering is basically felt in case of issues when we need to scale the software up. That means we have already an existing software, but we need to add certain more features to it. So that time, if the build up is not scientific and if it is not being uh, followed based on the while building up, we did not follow any engineering concepts or proper protocols. Then, in adding parts to a software which is already built, new addition will be much more difficult. So considering that aspect, we have to like going through the guidelines of software engineering becomes much more better. Then another thing is the cost involved. Okay, so when we talk about cost, there may be many other factors which will be coming into play. Like for example, if we are talking about hardware industry, then in that case, manufacturing cost is on the lighter side than the price of computer and electronic hardware. But the software, the cost of software is much more higher because here it's not only about the economic point of view, but also the efforts and the time consumed in order to build the software. Also, it requires a lot of um, amount of if we are talking about building up a software, definitely what are the tools which you will be using, whether those tools are premium based, then you need to buy them. So economic cost is there, but at the same time in building a software, it's not just a one night story, isn't it? So it may take a considerable amount of time depending upon the length of the and the functions of the software. So how much time you are putting in, that is also a cost, the time from the time angle. And the other part is the effort, how much amount of efforts the people, the team members are putting in order to make the software. Then another thing is the growth and adaptability nature of the product. Okay, that means depending upon the environment in which the user is working. So if the nature of the software or if the need of the software is always changing, or it's there is a change or an updation depending upon the new requirement every now and then. So we need to go for new addition or new enhancement. So that time, this dynamic nature of adaptation and growing need. Okay, so if we want to scale a software, let's say we want to add new features, okay, but just we cannot add like that because after adding certain feature, the product may not be doing any work. Then there has to be a kind of coordination and sync between the new module which is being added. So if we are following the principles of software engineering, then in that case, such kind of issues will not come up and we can add up the new modules as well quite easily. Then another thing is that when it comes to maintaining quality, so when we are developing a following a particular guideline or maybe a particular principles, then in that case, maintaining the quality becomes easier because there is always a checklist is there that whether we are following these guidelines or not, whether the software is standards or not, okay, as prescribed by the following guidelines. So there is a check on the quality, and so that is the reason that the need of software engineering is very very much important. So these are the requirements, you can say, or you can say the the reason that why software engineering is so much important unfurling the software, which is very much bigger in size and length. Then to build the software step by step in module wise, we need to follow a scientific process. Then second thing, the need is that if the software is scalable, okay, so if suppose today we are having only 5 functions, maybe after 3 years, that software will, for which I mean to say organization or for a client that we have built, some more features the client wants to add, then in that case, the software, we need not create a new version altogether. The same software can be upgraded. So for upgradation also, we need to, uh, I mean to say, we need to see like based on which model or which protocol the software it has been built. If no protocols or guidelines are being followed, then in that case, to scale that up will be very tough. In fact, we will not be able to do. Another thing is that the cost estimation. Through software engineering, we can estimate the cost. So cost estimation here doesn't mean only the economic point of view, the monetary aspect, but also the efforts and time that we put in making the product. Then the next point, dynamic nature, is similar to scalability only, but dynamic nature is basically when the product is always changing, okay, depending upon the requirement of the client. So whenever we have such kind of requirement, then if you are not following the guidelines of the software engineering, then in that case it becomes very, very difficult. Okay. Then also, if you want to make a quality product, a quality based software, so in order to check to have a quality check, isn't it, the checklist, so in that case also we need to follow the models, okay, or the principles laid down by the software engineering. Okay. So when we talk about like software, okay, so when can we say that which one is good and which one is bad? How do we categorize? Okay, so a software can be categorized to be a good software on 3 different grounds, that is operational, transitional, and maintenance. Okay, so in operational, when I talk about, so how will the software operate? Will it operate in a very good way? So this can be measured again on different parameters like budget, okay, how much amount of money we are investing, which are the people who will be using it, the end users, isn't it? All right, will it be made only for the layman, or will it be made for different group of users? Then how efficient will it be, the response time, how much correct value will it be giving out us the output, what are the functions it will be having, okay, what are the parameters it will be dependent on, like what are the input values it will be dependent on, will be the type of the input that the software, the product will be taking in. It can be text, it can be numbers, isn't it? It can be various kinds, it can be image, okay. Then how strong is the security aspect is of the safe of the software, and second thing, how safe it is to operate with the software. Okay, so keeping all these in consideration, uh, the first parameter, that is the operational. So under operational, we have again these sub parameters which makes the operational part. Okay, the next is the transitional. So transitional again means how much comfortable is the software in being implemented in different platforms, isn't it? First is portability. Is it portable in Windows or is it portable in Linux as well? Interoperability. Does it work in both the platforms very easily? Okay. Reusability. If the software today is let's say having certain parts, okay, and we are building another product again of similar nature, but not exactly you can say a clone, okay, but you can say another product we are building where it has certain features. So can we use the features of a product which we had built earlier? Certain parts can we take and reuse it, like how we have done in OOP as well, inheritance, right? So something like that, can we do that? Will it be adaptable to various kinds of platforms or not, to various environment, okay, developing environment? Will it be adaptable to different environment as well? So all these things makes the transitional part of the software. The next is the maintenance, like how well we can maintain the software once it is being built, when it is being deployed on the client side. Okay, so we have to check how strong will be the maintainability, whether will it be on a regular basis or whether it will be on a on a fixed you can say timeline. Let's say after 6 months we have to check the maintainability part. How much flexible will it be to be used by different kinds of users. So whether it is a layman, whether it's a you can say people who are in the middle level who are not so much into IT, but someone who knows how to operate at least, isn't it? Or whether it'll be flexible for only the core group of scientific people only or for developers. So once a software is being made, we have to check like, see, once any software is being made, we need to see how it is going to help the people. Okay, so once we are a developer, we should think how it can be a problem solving for the common man. So our approach will be to make the software secure, very good, quality should be very nice, but at the same time, it should be very easy also for the layman to operate the software. Otherwise, there is no meaning, isn't it? We may make a very high-ended app, but then if people are finding it difficult to maintain and they are unable to use, then there is no point in making the software. And at the same time, scalability is also one of the important aspects. Like what we have seen. If suppose we have a software already there, but if we want to add new features later, will it be scalable? Can we expand it or not? So all these things comes into play while deciding that whether we have built a very good software or not. Whether the software has modularity or not, that means are there modules or not, parts or not of the software. Because one complex software, if we build together, we will fail. There is a very high probability. So we need to divide it into various sections or modules, isn't it? So those kind of considerations has to be taken. So in short, whatever we have learned from the first class and today, so what is software engineering right now, we can define properly. It is nothing but a part of computer science which tells us, okay, certain well-defined, already those concepts are proven by the people who have developed them. So which uses well-defined engineering concepts. Why we use this concept? So that we can produce efficient, durable, that means long lasting, scalable, that means if a software is, let's say, having 3 modules, tomorrow we can add it some more depending upon the requirement of the client. In budget, here means uh, the economic as well as the efforts that we are putting in, that should be realistic in nature. We should be able to achieve that, and at the same time we should be able to deploy on the client side on time. Let's say the client has given you 3 months time period to deploy to develop the product, so you should be on time. Okay, so software engineering is a part or a branch of computer science with the well-defined engineering concepts. Engineering concepts here means the guidelines, the protocols. Okay, using those guidelines and protocols, we will be able to make efficient, durable, scalable, in budget and on time software product. So that is the main idea of why we should have software engineering as a subject. Okay, so that's the need. Otherwise, why the subject will be there? For everything, there has to be a reason, isn't it? That is the main reason that software engineering plays a very important role in making a product. Okay. Now, when we talk about the protocols and guidelines, so the most important factor comes the different kinds of models that we need to know. Okay, so the first one is uh, there are various software development life cycle models. So first, let us see what is the life cycle model. Okay, so software life cycle model sometimes is also called as the process model. It's a descriptive and diagrammatic representation of the software life cycle. Okay, so here in this model, what happens is all the activities that we are going to uh, undertake while making the software product. Okay, right from the time was conceptualized till the software is being made and deployed on the client side. So all the process, all the steps is categorized step by step, so that it becomes easier for us to know like what is the next step we should take after this phase is completed. Okay, so that is very that this models actually help us to realize what is the what are the phases that we should go through while making a particular software. Okay, so in other words, I can say that these life cycle models that we have basically it links the various activities performed on a software product right from the time it was conceived to the software is being built. Okay, so all the different the stages, okay, basically uh, helps us to know like what are the phases we should have while making a software product. Okay. So different life cycle models are being used for different kind of software development, and that actually depends upon what kind of product we are going to make. Okay, so depending upon the size, the type, we have to take decisions that which life cycle model we are going to choose. Okay, so why? What is the need of having a software life cycle model? So this is from a very practical aspect. Let's say we have a development team. Okay, the programmers. So they must be able to identify the suitable life cycle model, because there are various types of life cycle model required for making a particular project. Okay, and one should stick to that once they have identified the particular life cycle model. Okay, so once the particular life cycle model is being chosen, then the process of making the software must be done in a very systematic and in a very disciplined way. Okay, so when a particular product is developed by those team of developers, then there should be very much clear understanding among the team members of what they should do and what is the output that they should expect to achieve from every stage of the life cycle model. Okay, otherwise what will happen if there is no understanding of between the team members, then it will lead to chaotic environment and failure of the development. So the best thing is that the software development team should be able to categorize first on paper the various stages that they will be carrying out, and that thing has to be shared with each of the team members so that everyone is clear of what is the main objective, how we are going to proceed, what are the various stages, and what is the output that is being expected at every stage. Okay, so that clarity uh, becomes very much clear in making the product, and the product ultimately becomes like it becomes very easier to finish, to develop the product within the time period which is being assigned to the software developer team by the client. Okay, so something like that. Now when we talk about software lifecycle model, there are various types of lifecycle model depending upon the need of the client, and as well as the team members, the software team members also has to identify that this kind of software, if it is being built, then which model they have to follow. Okay, so these are the important ones, and this is very important for your exam also. Okay, so this is being asked, like question might be asked like what is spiral model, what are the various stages of spiral model, mention its advantages as well as disadvantages. So this is very very important. At least one of the software model will be asked only, so you have to make a point that you know this software model in and out. Okay, so first one is the classical waterfall model. So this is the oldest of all, and it is a very theoretical way of developing a software. So classical waterfall model is intuitively the most easiest way which is being described to develop a software. Okay, but though it looks very easy and very easy to understand also, but practically it is not feasible to implement. Okay, because for small projects it's fine, very very small ones, but it is not easy to implement this model for projects which are very much bigger in size, especially for industry based projects. Classical waterfall model is never recommended. Okay, but this is the oldest of all, so that is the reason through classical waterfall model only other models came into picture. So let us first see what is classical waterfall model. Okay, so this is a very theoretical way of developing a software. Okay, and all the other life cycles actually are derived from this model only. Okay, so these are the steps. So first one is the feasibility study. Second one is second stage is requirement analysis and specification. Then next is the design, then coding and the testing, which comes one after another. Maintenance. Okay, these are the various phases. That means the stage, okay, of the classical waterfall model. So first of all, the first feasibility study. So whenever from the word itself, feasibility means what? We have to check the software that we have conceptualized or whether the software product that we are being asked to make, whether it is feasible enough to make that or not, because many things will come, like financially, whether it will be feasible or not, whether the budget constraints may be there, whether technically it will be feasible or not. Maybe some software are very much bigger in size, okay, which may be very much scientific in nature. Whether do we have all those tools or not, whether those tools, if we have, are they premium one or whether they are open source, whether the hardware platform that the software will be running, whether do we have the ample hardware specifications or not. So we first, whenever we are making a product, we have to check first that whether it is feasible or not, okay, depending upon the current situation that we are. So first of all, what we need to do is how we are going to check the feasibility study. So first of all, at first, the project managers or team leaders will have a rough understanding of what is to be done, okay, by visiting the client. That means, while if suppose the project members or the team leaders are visiting the client site, then they need to have a very thorough understanding of what the software will do. What is the main objective that we are going to build? Okay, what is the aim? Now, once they are done with that, then they have to see that what the software will be taking in. That means what kind of input data will be the software taking in, whether it will be text, whether it will be video, whether it will be an image, or any other kind. So whether those data sets are also available or not, okay, or whether the data can be applied by any end user or not. So that we have to check. And if suppose the data is taken in by the system, how the system will process and what is the expected output. So that has to be very clear. Okay. So once that is done, then if suppose input data, we can easily generate, any end user can give it, and output also we know what to get exactly, okay, and how the processing of the input also is being done, okay, how we are going to do it, that also is clear. Then there is no problem, we can go ahead. Then after that is being analyzed, if suppose there are certain problems and issues, then we need to investigate on the solutions that are possible. So we need to make a set of solutions. Suppose if this solution is not working for a particular set of problem while making the software, then we have a backup and we are being able to tackle that problem quite easily. Okay, so once the input data, output data, and the processing unit is being identified, next we have to see that if suppose there is certain problem in making the software, how we are going to defend that and solve that problem. So for that, we need to identify also the kind of solution and the solution set we will be having, what kind of resources will be required also as well in making the software. That also we have to check. What will be the cost of development? Cost again here doesn't mean only money or the financial aspect, but also the time that is being invested and also the efforts that the team will be making. So all those aspects has to be examined while saying yes to making any software. Okay. Then again, same thing. They are saying that whether the solution is feasible financially and technically or not, whether the customer will be able to meet the cost of the product or not. So all these things have to be taken while checking the feasibility study. So that is the reason now also when you'll be working on your minor project, first thing is you have to do the feasibility study. This project I am going to do, is it technically feasible? Okay, so that aspect you have to check. And similarly, like you have 3 theory papers also. So if you take a very long project also and if you are unable to complete, so that also you have to check that whether the effort and time that I'm putting in, whether I'll be able to complete by the end of the year, by November end. So all those considerations, or by December, whatever it may be, a particular timeline, whether I'll be able to complete or not. So those things you have to check. Since you are doing from academic purpose only, so financially you don't have to think. But time and effort is something that you really need to check in. And second, in 6 semesters, since it will be an organization-based project, so whatever the requirement that the company will be giving. So you have to cross check that also, that whether it will be feasible for you to work on that project as well. Okay, so that comes first is the feasibility study. Then next thing which comes is the requirement analysis and specification. So first, again, there are two parts. One is the requirement gathering analysis, and the second part is requirement specification. So the aim of the requirement gathering activity is to collect all the required information from the customer. That means the one who has given you to make the software regarding the product which is to be developed for them. Now, why do we do this? Why this meeting with the customer and collecting all the important information is very much important? This is because so that we can get a very clear understanding of what are the expectations and requirements of the customer. Because ultimately we have to deploy that for the customer, isn't it? We are building for the particular person or for the organization. So we need to be very clear what are the expectations and what are the requirements of the customer, so that any kind of inconsistencies and incompleteness is not there. Okay, so this is a very important part, that the developer and the team of the development must be in proper discussion with the customer regarding the development of the product. If there is any kind of misconception, then there may be, you can say, communication gap, and due to which the product which will be developed will be inconsistent in nature. So that has to be taken care very, very strongly. Now, the requirement analysis, how the activity is being carried out is by collecting all the data regarding to be developed from the customer. Okay, and this can be done like through discussions, or maybe by taking interviews, or maybe having an on-site observation. So various things can be done, okay, depending upon the need. Like for example, if suppose we are building a business accounting software for an organization, right? So in that case, the analyst, what needs to do is needs to talk with the accountant, or maybe with the financial wing of the organization. Okay, so that there is very clear picture of what is their expectation and requirement. Okay, so once the data is collected from such group of people, then what will happen, we can remove all the ambiguities and any kind of uncertainties, and finally we will be able to make a software without any kind of um, uh, like logical error. Okay, so that has to be very, very much clear. So the first part, the requirement analysis and gathering, is very, very important in making a product. So once that is being taken in from the customer, okay, all these issues are being resolved by discussion and talking and all that. So what we need to do, we need to list out them very properly, what is the requirement, okay, in a document format. So what is the document format called? SRS, Software Requirement Specification. So this document, that is the software requirement specification, will be basically be made by the developing team on their side once they have interviewed or have spoken with the customer or with the client. Once the document is made, then the developer again will brief the customer, will say that, okay, you have given all these requirements, I made the software requirement specification as per your need, and please cross check that whether these things, whatever we have discussed, is correct or not. Smoothly. Okay. Then the next part, once this phase is done, requirement gathering, analysis, and requirement specification. Specification refers to the document part. Once they have gathered all the information and they have documented, so that will come under that. So now they have to design the system. That means they have to make the system, the prototype they have to make of how the system will look like, what is the input data it will take, what are the data structures that we will be using in order to make the system. Okay, what kind of language we will use, what will be the front end, what will be the back end, what will be the platform. So all these considerations are to be taken. Okay, so whenever we are designing a particular system, then there can be two approaches. One is the traditional method and one is the object oriented method. So in case of traditional method, it's very simple. What we need to do, first of all, we need to structure properly the requirements which is specified by the client side or by the customer. And then we have to lay down what are the various data structures we'll be using. Okay, what are the various functions we'll be using? What are the various subroutines we'll be using? What are the various libraries or maybe uh, frameworks we will be using? So all those things we will be deciding in the design phase only. Okay, in the traditional design approach. In the object oriented design approach, the concept remains the same, but here basically we will be doing all the works, all the problems will be solved via objects, because you know in OOP every work in making use of a data structure, in calling a function, we can do that only by creating objects of the particular class, isn't it? So same thing, we will be deciding this and that, but whenever we will be going for testing, sorry, not for whenever we are going for the implementation phase, then that has to be done through object oriented programming. That means through the use of objects of the class that we will be building in the software development, using the object oriented programming only we will be solving our work. Okay. Now, next is after we have decided like what language we will use, what is the platform this will be running, what is the back end, what is the front end, everything where data structures will be using, what will be the pseudocode, everything when we have laid down, then we will go to the coding. So coding is the coding phase is basically it's is the phase where we are translating the software design, the design phase into the source code. Okay, and that can be done by what? By programmatically, by using a programming language, isn't it? So once we are in the coding phase, we cannot code the entire project at one go. So what we will do, we will decompose that into various modules. Modules means parts, okay, into various small parts. So which module we want to finish, depending upon that, one by one, we can finish off the entire product, okay, development. Now, once the product is being developed, or let's say if one module is done, we are moving to the second one. What we can do when one module is done, we can check, okay, we can test whether that module is working properly or not. How do we test? By giving input data. Suppose, let's say if we have a system from text to speech converter. So let's say in that case, what will be my input data? Text. I'll have to give text, type something. That system should be able to give the output in the form of a speech. Let's say I'm writing hello, we are in class. So I'm just typing. So I built a system which will convert my hello, we are in class into speech. So hello, we are in class. Once I've inputted the text, the output will be what? In voice form, it will be coming hello, we are in class. I'm just giving a rough example. Okay. So every part of the module that is being developed, that has to be tested whether it is working correctly or not. And if suppose in one module there are some errors or bugs, then we need to find out, hunt the errors, and then we have to solve it. Okay. Integration testing basically is when all the modules are basically uh, made. Okay. So what we can do is after the modules are being made, when we have integrated all the modules to make one common software, then we can test the entire system as a whole. Okay. So whether the entire system is working properly or not, and then accordingly we can check. Again, if there is some issues and all that, then what we can do, we can work it out on the part which is there are some errors or bugs, and then we can develop a error-free system. Okay. So there are alpha, beta. This I'll talk in a testing chapter. There is full testing chapter only. So I'll not speak much about it here. Okay. Then again, the other part is like maintaining. If suppose a software is being developed, already we have deployed that also on the client side, isn't it? So we have to maintain that also. Suppose, for example, today the software is working very nicely. Tomorrow or maybe after 6 months, it may not work. So the team has to be ready that once it has been deployed, if there is any kind of issues or problems, then the team has to go and solve it on the client side. Okay. So certain times it so happens that small errors are not discovered during the development phase. Okay, but if the client discovers while making use of it, so the development team has to go there and make corrections for the errors. So this is called corrective maintenance. Then certain times like this also it happens that the client wants to add certain more features, okay, after 1 year or 2 years. Okay, suppose if you are building for an e-commerce website, so that website maybe has this clothing and maybe eateries. Tomorrow maybe it can come with groceries, so grocery is not there. So next day maybe you will have to add that up, isn't it? So depending upon the need of the requirement actually from the customer side, you have to help in enhancing the function. So this is called perfective maintenance. Whenever you are going that for making any corrections that was not discovered and you are making the corrections, that is called corrective maintenance. But if suppose you have to scale that software up, there is already a software which is working very nicely, but certain more features have to be added later depending upon the growth of the organization. Then in that case, we say that that is a perfective maintenance. Then if suppose let's say software is making we are making use of the software in Windows, but that the client wants that it should be migrated to Linux or maybe Mac, isn't it? So what happens, there will be a switch in the platform. So if suppose we will have to do that for an existing software, so again that will be in the category of maintenance. But what kind of maintenance? Adapt. Then what are the like disadvantages of the classical waterfall model? So these are the disadvantages. The classical waterfall model is no doubt an idealistic one theoretically, okay, but uh, in practical sense, if we use this model for large products, then we commit a large number of errors, okay, and the source of the defects can be many, like we are not focusing on small details, the assumptions that we are making is not correct, use of inappropriate technology, communication gap among the team members itself. Okay, so these defects are usually detected later part in this classical waterfall model. And one biggest disadvantage is that this you have to remember. Oh, people say coding is very tough, but the thing is that coding phase or the implementation phase is the easiest of all if you know what you have to get. If you know that this is my aim, various functions or the paths the software should be having. And this is the data that the software will take in and process and give me this output. Once you are clear with that, you can code in any programming language or in any platform. So that will be clear only when you have done the requirement analysis and specification part, the first part, the meeting with the customer, the client. That is very clear when you have discussed very thoroughly. And second thing, when you are clear in the design phase, what technology, what data structure, what subroutines you'll be using. So until and unless you are not very clean from in the analysis and design phase, you will never be able to make an error-free software. Okay, so that's the reason you have to be very clear about what you are going to make in uh, the software. Okay, so that's what is there. So should I do this iterative waterfall model today, or we'll do in the next class? Any class?
Sir, next class.
Okay. So today's one, any questions or it's fine for today?
No, sir, no questions.
Okay. So that is what then I think so far it's fine only theoretical aspect, but I'm trying to connect all the waterfall models with the real time project so that you people will be able to relate. And moreover, in your project report and while making the minor project and major project, you have to follow the guidelines of software engineering, isn't it? So that is the reason, like I'm focusing on the project part. I'm to say how the project must be made using the principles. So that is the reason. So I think it's fine. Anyone, any question?
No, sir.
Okay, then you people do this one, and I'll share the content, maybe the lecture notes in the next class. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.